the main positive from starting your own business, the main driver is that it's working when you're not there and you're able to make money while you're going out mountain
Yep.
biking or kayaking or whatever. And so that was kind of the focus there.
Hit it! That's what I'm talking about. Wait!
Okay, now, from the beginning.
Hit it, boys.
Well, Sam, you are one of my most favorite people to hang out with. Just super energetic and yeah, just really fun. And I've actually been trying to get you here on the show for a bit, so I'm stoked to have you. And welcome to the Art of Awesome podcast.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me again, and I'm stoked I've taken the opportunity. I was a little bit nervous actually the first time, but I've been following along on the podcast, and it's awesome actually. I really enjoy listening to it. Love your work, bro. So it's cool to finally catch up again after a couple of years.
Well, thanks for that. And yeah, it is good. It's been too long since we've been together hanging out in person, and definitely miss being with you on the river, trying to chase you down and catch up because I was always pretty far behind. But Sam, you're pretty widely known for your kayak achievements, including your 4-time Sickline Extreme Race World Championships. So that's pretty amazing. I think I was actually there for all 4 of them, which was also super cool. Though you've got so much more depth than just that, and I also want to talk about that as well. So you're like one of the people that I think of the most when I hear the word entrepreneur. You've got a flurry of like different companies and businesses that you've started, including a video game app that I also want to talk about that you were just like promoting on social and stuff. But you also started Waka Kayaks, which has been hugely successful in the past couple of years. Obviously, probably greatly affected with your world championship winning events. And then you started this rafting company that has also taken off on, am I correct? Is it on the Kaituna in New Zealand?
Yeah, correct. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's pretty good rundown.
Well, first off, I guess what I wanted to say was, how did it all come into reality? And did it start like, how did you get into kayaking, and where did the entrepreneurship come from? And like, which kind of came first, kayaking, or was it always business, kind of like this creative mind first? Or I don't know, just kind of give us a rundown of like, was it the chicken or the egg that came first?
It was actually the rooster that came first. But no, well, I guess I grew up in Orchidee Falls, so that's where the Orchidee River or the Kaituna River flows from. And I saw kayaking from an early age, but I never really took the step into the kayak. But growing up, I always thought I'd have my own businesses, and I was quite excited about entrepreneurship from a very early age. Always thinking about, I guess, a side hustle or some description or stuff like that. And then actually kayaking fully changed my life plan away from that initially. And I was just so focused on kayaking. All I would do at high school was draw pictures of kayaks on my corner of my book.
I was the same way, totally the same.
Yeah, and then you'd come home and you'd watch kayaking movies, and you'd be like watching these dudes. I'd actually, like, I think in my later years, just before I went over to my first overseas trip, which was actually to the Ottawa, which is the first time I met you in 2006, which was my last year of high school, and I just came across you guys, and it was definitely like so nervous going and seeing these people like that I've just watched on the movie screen, like Rush Sturges, and for example,
Yeah.
and so kayaking really, it consumed my life, and it was everything to me. And I really struggled actually after that first trip. When I came back to New Zealand, I had my last 2 months of high school left, and my life path was just so clear to me as what I wanted to do was just to travel the world and go kayaking. And so that's what I did. And people were like, dude, how are you going to make any money doing this? And everybody else's parents were kind of like quite judgmental. Like my friends' parents were like, "You've got no backup plan." Whereas I really take my hat off to my parents, being like, "No, we believe in you. We think you can go out and do what you want to do, and you've got that entrepreneurial streak," which I really hadn't found properly yet. And so yeah, went out, traveled the world kayaking, and I needed to make ends meet though. Like my parents weren't going to financially support me or anything like that. So um, luckily there was some people that ended up finding me along the way, and then Adidas supported me from my second year out of high school, which was kind of gave me enough to start traveling the world and take it a little bit more professional. And then I actually got into that extreme racing within kind of the second year of kayaking, and the first kind of bigger race I got to do was actually in Hood River, and it was against with Tao Berman, and he beat me in the end, but in the head-to-head in the boatocross, I managed to beat him with like half a blade of a Lettman paddle snapped off. And
Oh, really?
dude, yeah, and I had no money, man, so I borrowed this paddle, and it had like half, but the Lettman blade was so grunty you could just get away with it. And then yeah, I think people were like, "Who's this rugged dude trying to go hard?"
Race
And after
Tao
that,
with
they
half a
had me,
blade.
yeah, try like Tao Berman is such a beast. And then after that, I really got excited about that extreme racing, and I saw that I've got some potential to actually do quite well in this, and I quite liked like most of us are quite competitive, I would say, and it just came naturally to start training for that a little bit, um, and I found it worked really well. It really worked with my style of enjoying to like be on the line, and that was more for self-preservation. Like I would always paddle everything. Like if you make a mistake, you die, and that's kind of the mentality that I took into the extreme racing, and kind of through that, it was through kayaking that my eyes opened up to all these other people doing these other amazing things that kayaking had kind of shown them the path and was the main teacher for them. And it like opened up these businesses that they were able to establish through that. And that's kind of my first proper business that I really started was Rotorua Rafting. And the reason was basically I just saw it as a way as I could go safety kayaking during the summer months in New Zealand and make decent coin and kind of start setting myself up for life in the future. And not long after that, we had the opportunity to start Waka Kayaks, and that was awesome, fun, really fun experience actually starting Waka. And the passion really came from just having this amazing boat and just taking it to the masses. So we just took the mold from New Zealand over to Europe, and basically just started sending it. But we're just always bootstrapped and probably quite the opposite to like really large companies where we're just purely based on like cash flow. And it's like, man, we don't have any money to grow this thing really fast. And when you're trying to sponsor paddlers and stuff, and you're like, dude, I've got to sell 5 boats to pay for that one boat. Do you think we can really do that? We haven't made any money. But
Right.
nowadays I look at it, I'm like, whoa, it's just such a cool brand to see just so many of these great paddlers paddling it and sending it pretty hard these days, I think.
Yeah, one, I definitely applaud the Waka kayaks because I think what you did there was super cool, and I love just the bootstrapping mentality of kind of like making that work. And obviously, I think you're being pretty humble there yourself. I think your success in paddling is probably been a great contributor, as well as the fact that the designs are really good, and you know you've got other great paddlers that are using it too. But with kind of going back to the rafting company, because First off, I love your whole story. It's very similar to mine. I think you and I are actually like the same age and both kind of left high school just being like, well, I want to figure out this whole kayaking thing. And it was pretty cool that we met, I think, right out of high school together. I didn't realize that after that World Cup that you had to go back for 2 months more of high school because the whole Southern Hemisphere, your winter, our summer thing. But that's funny. I totally just like blanked on that whole part. But so we're also super fortunate that the two of us got kind of picked up and hooked up with the Adidas Sick Line crew, which was always phenomenal. I love working with that brand and it was amazing. Though kind of, even though we're, pro kayakers, which is amazing and helped fund these incredible trips, it's not like on the same level as like an NFL or like a rugby player. Do you know what I mean? Like being a pro kayaker isn't like you're just like rolling
Maybe
in
a
it.
rugby player's month if they were really terrible at the game.
And so I remember one year talking with you about Sick Line and you're saying something, or maybe it was even when we were in Mexico, I'm not exactly sure. And you're like, yeah, I bought a raft. And I was like, what are you going to do with a raft? And you're like, oh, I'm going to start a kayak or a rafting company. And I love how you said you wanted to start it so that you could become a safety kayaker. Cause I think most people would be like, well, I'm just going to go safety kayak for somebody else. Like, where did the idea of like, oh, I'm going to just like buy a raft and start this rafting company and take over the like whole industry there?
Yeah, well, it was pretty so starting the rafting, it was really so I used some of the funds actually from kayaking. As I was like, okay, I'll buy this raft. Actually, I bought the raft initially off like a version of eBay after a couple of years at a barbecue, and I saw this raft and was like, oh, I'll just buy this raft. And then it just naturally progressed like, oh, well, I'll need to get certified to take people if I want to rent the raft or something. And it was basically just came down to valuing my time. So if I'm going to safety kayak for somebody, I might as well safety kayak for myself and take the cream off the top. And, I mean, there's a lot of negatives to owning your own business. And to me, like the main positive from starting your own business, the main driver is that it's working when you're not there and you're able to make money while you're going out mountain biking or kayaking or whatever. And so that was kind of the focus there. And I just love the river and I love the area. And now the focus of the business is completely different from when I wanted to just go safety kayaking. Now we're fully focused on developing like Orchidea Falls into a sustainable, like a self-sufficient community we've got a 100-year vision for that, and working on lots of different reforestation projects within this area. So there's multi-layers within that rafting. And now we've actually ventured off. I've spent 2 years getting a resource consent for a zip line venture over the river, which will enable people to see the river from a different angle, and it's a climate positive experience. So we're offsetting our carbon footprint by over 200%.
Wow.
And within that, there's again a variety of projects that we've just undertaken. One of the most ambitious projects is we wanted to take people up to the top of this farm and show regenerative agriculture within our experience. And how we're doing that is we got like a Yamaha Viking, which is a side-by-side, the quads with the roll cage kind of thing,
Yep.
6-seater. And we've got a Nissan Leaf, and we've upcycled the Nissan Leaf into the side-by-side with a Gen 1, and pretty excited. It's all been done in Orchidea Falls, and definitely am I no means the major contributor to this project because it's far above my pay grade and intelligence and skill. But we're actually probably the first people in the world to do that. So that's kind of some of the other things that we've got up to in New Zealand. So far, I think everybody else has only managed to get their Nissan Leaf Gen 1 to go in reverse and limp mode, and that we also found that problem, but luckily there's a wizard around the corner who managed to get it to go forward. So that's pretty cool.
No way, dude. You blow my mind constantly, Sam. And I love that you've got this like 100-year vision and just such a creative mindset for sure. And the other thing that just kind of like I see from my experience with you in paddling and kayaking and the sick line race and all that stuff is you've got this like dominant mentality of like I will win, I will succeed in whatever I do. I remember just like talking with you before when I think maybe you'd won the first world championships, and then even after you won the second world championships, like during while they were filming that in the TV show, I think you said something like watch out because I'm going to win a third one in a row as well. And I remember talking with you at like dinner like for the following year, and you're like, oh man, maybe I shouldn't have said that on TV or something like that. But it's just like that mentality of like, I know what I want, and I'm gonna put it out in the world because I will succeed and nothing's gonna kind of get in my way. And I see that in everything that you're doing, and it's, I don't know, just a really cool mentality. Is that something that you focus on, or is that just like kind of come naturally for you?
Um, when I was kayaking, it was much easier to have that mentality and feel confident in your ability because I felt confident in my own ability. And there's definitely times within, I guess, business at the moment where I'm like, whoa, this is a big task that I've taken on. But I would say that like I definitely believe, like I just believe in
Yeah.
myself that I will. And I think if you can visualize it, it will end up happening. It's just that quite often, and I think you have to suffer for a while before you actually get to get to where you wanted to be. I remember I had times with kayaking at the start where I was like, okay, I'll give myself 1 more month. Otherwise, I don't think I can carry on like this. Like I'm not going to make enough money to go anywhere. And it always worked out, man.
Yep.
So I guess you just got to have faith that that is going to be continue in everything that you do. And I mean, I definitely fail often, but so long as you like in short term failure, but I will carry on. It's just that you've got to re-energize and just stop, take a pause and re-strategize of what your path is. And I mean, often you have outside influences that are coming into these decisions that are outside of your control that actually end up slowing your momentum down, which like I guess a lot of people have found that, especially in the last 18 months.
Yeah. I totally agree with all of that for sure. And yeah, I think just kind of like putting it out there and pushing it, and also knowing too that, like what you're saying, it takes time. Like I think everybody looks it's easy to look at someone and claim it as like this overnight success. Like, oh, Sam, four-time world champion. He started this business, this rafting company that's super successful, and this kayak company that's super successful, and all these different things, or whoever they're looking at, but they don't see the 10 years prior of like full-on dirt bag, bootstrapping it. And so I think a lot of that happens in life. And I don't know if it's social media is the culprit or what, but where people they see the success, they don't see all the hard work. And I feel like there's a quote that goes something along the lines of like, yeah, he was an overnight success after he put in the 10 years or 15 years or 30 years or however many times. Like it doesn't matter how long it takes to get there, but nobody sees that hard work. They only see the like quote unquote like overnight success.
Yeah, I mean, Elon Musk's always saying right, I work 20 hours a day, 365 days a year, and people still think I'm lucky.
Yeah, exactly. That's pretty accurate. Yeah. Okay, so Sam, tell me about this app that you created and the whole mobile gaming world championships. Where did that all come from?
It's a pretty interesting story. So in Nepal, I was kayaking up in Annapurna, and I remember going up to order some dalbat. This is in 2014, I believe, and I went up to this tea hut to order some dalbat. There's like a 60-year-old lady looking after her grandchild, barely acknowledging me because she's just so intrigued in her phone with Candy Crush Saga going on. And I was like, I feel like we're on the end of the earth right now, and there's a lady playing Candy Crush, and then after that trip, um, we're just traveling around, and you're just like, man, people are just in their phones, and especially like in some nations, they're just playing games. I was
Yep.
like, wow, it would be pretty interesting to get into. Like, I was like, oh well, I've done pretty well at kayaking, but it is a small sport, so I guess it's easier to do well at kayaking if it's a small sport. I was like, man, mobile gaming, it would have to be the biggest hobby in the world, and it is at the moment. There's 2 billion people playing mobile games in the world.
Wow.
So I think it's pretty easy to argue that that would be the largest hobby. And I just wanted to kind of create the athletic esports on your mobile where you can play games for real money and just find like who is the best within this hobby really is kind of the goal. I mean, it's pretty early on stages. It's taken a long time to actually come to fruition. I tried it a few years ago, but just didn't have the competency or the skills or the connections really to pull it off. And maybe at the moment I still don't have the competency, skills, and knowledge to pull it off. But we've tried our first soft launch just to
Yep.
see how it went, and there was definitely, it wasn't as successful as you would always hope, but we definitely took some learnings, and we're ready to kind of move on to the next stage of it. But yeah, it's like everything. I mean, I listen to a lot of different podcasts, and you do have to focus on things. And when you have too many things, it is really hard to focus on.
Yep.
But they all kind of come within the same umbrella as my core focus of having like a bunch of different businesses and being able to grow them.
Mhm.
But just when you are bootstrapping a lot of stuff and you don't have the capital and the resources to put a lot of manpower into everything, it becomes quite a burden, I guess, on yourself. But you've got to do some suffering if you want to make it to the top.
I love it. So is the goal with the mobile gaming world championships, is it like focused around the app that you guys created, or are you guys going to do like different games, or kind of where's that kind of going?
So we have a game dev working for us at the moment, and it's pretty epic. We're producing a new game every week,
Holy
and
cow.
every game has a different skill set, and only one game is live. So basically, what's going to happen is it will become free to play. So it's just mass tournament, and we're going to rely on sponsorship money to fund the prize pool. And we're just the sole purpose is to try find the best gamers, and as time goes on, the prize pool will start to grow, and then hopefully the sponsorship will be of value where you can actually make a little bit of profit off that. But I guess the overall goal is to grow this ginormous user base, and then we can branch off, of course, from there. But it's just getting into an industry that I really don't know super well. I'm not skilled within that area, but it's quite cool when you do dive headfirst into something. You pick up the skill set that you would never have picked up otherwise. Just like the EV conversion, I'd no idea what a supercapacitor is, or how the EV motor would work, or what a loom is, and that's the whole wiring system of the whole vehicle. Which I can tell you, within an EV, there is a lot of wires. And you
It's not,
don't know which one to cut when you're going to cut them.
yeah. It's like one of those Hollywood movies where you're like trying to like disassemble a bomb and you're like, cut the red one, not the black one. Oh gosh. That's funny.
The really pink one, or the kind of pink one. And it's pretty.
With your
So
app,
that's kind of why I get into it.
Yeah.
Just to, sometimes I probably shouldn't get into it, but I still think that they're going to end up becoming something, and it's just comes down to really timing and when you can put more energy into certain things and stuff like that.
Did you try to reach out to like I don't know, quote unquote, like pro gamers, and just like say, hey, check out this, mobile app world championships that I'm trying to do, and just like reach out to people? Or was it all just like word of mouth?
Yeah, I did try to reach out to gamers. Probably not the right gamers, to be honest. It's like like I said, it's an industry that I'm not very familiar with, so I'm definitely learning along the way. But it's pretty interesting. The stats from the first game. The average player spent 18 hours within the week competing in the game, so they're spending
Wow.
like a solid amount of their week um, playing in the game. But yeah, trying to get those. I guess the main like game influencers are all people that play PC games, and we're kind of going into the mobile bracket, so they're
Right.
not so cool within the games, but it is for the masses actually. So, and
Yeah.
that's what it's just quite cool to do something that has a really wide market.
Yeah. Yeah. Sam, one of the coolest things that I find about your personality and something that inspires me a ton is that you take action, because there's like a lot of people out there that they have ideas, and then there's some of those people that will like talk about those ideas, and then there's even less people that actually like turn those ideas into fruition. And I love how you just like get all these like crazy ideas and just like run with it and take it all the way to the finish line. So first, I applaud you on doing that. But is that kind of just your mentality where you think of some cool idea and you're like, oh, I'm just gonna start a mobile game world championship series? Like, that sounds like a great idea. I know that I have nothing to do with that field of expertise, or like, retrofitting an EV vehicle or something like that. And just like, is it just that these ideas just come and you're like, you don't know what to do other than to take it all the way to the finish line and like turn them into reality, or what?
Well, I actually think that you're quite similar, Nick. Like you've got so many different things going on, and it's awesome to see like you pull off this podcast is awesome, and then your family traveling show, that's amazing. And I think for me, I actually see it as a little bit of a a weakness that I jump into so many different things way too fast. And the problem I have, if I have any spare time, then I come up with something else and I action it, and like I feel like I need to action it instantly.
Yeah.
And I really am trying to work on to stop, take a minute, think about it before I just dive headfirst into it. But often, um, it's really easy to push the button and just send it, like
Yeah.
Richard Branson says, screw it, let's do it. And
That's awesome.
yeah, but I, I mean, there's always room for improvement. Like I see a lot of people that are able to just focus on one thing, and they
Hmm.
can really do an amazing job. And that's the hardest part, I think, is if we do try to do too many things, it is really hard to make the finish line,
Yeah.
because you are working like 4 times slower, but across a really wide range. But it just comes down to whatever goal you want, right? So, I mean, to me, my kind of life path was, after kayaking, when I didn't feel confident within my own ability to perform at the level that I wanted to perform at, and with having kids, I thought I need to take a step back, and it's about creating the life for my kids
Yep.
at the moment. And so now I'm just in this phase of my life, but I want to try to climb out to an early retirement where I can go and travel and go back on the river with my kids. And yeah, and sometimes I double guess that life path, because you can always see the grass is greener on social media.
Yeah.
But
100%.
then you just got to stay true to your guns and believe in your own path, trust the process.
Yep. I love how you talk about just like anytime you have spare time, you come up with a new idea. Because I'm totally the same. Where I'm like, oh man, I'm totally swamped. I'm totally swamped with work, and then I like just crush it all out, get everything done, and whatever. And then I'm like, oh, I've got like an extra hour. What should I? What else should I pile on? Like, I gotta start something new now or do whatever. And luckily for me, Emily's pretty good now, because we've been married for, gosh, 12 years, which is crazy on its own. But she keeps me in check a little bit. Like every now and then I'll tell her, we'll be driving. I'm like, Em, I've got this new idea of like a business or something like whatever. And she's like, well, that's good. What about the other ones that you're always doing? I'm like, oh yeah, well,
About
we'll
your
see.
kids, have they picked up on that flaw? Have they?
They definitely. So the other thing too, like we homeschool our kids. So like I'm with them all day. And that's probably the hardest part is the fact that I still have to do my work and like the, do the things that I've taken on. But they'll be like beside me doing their school. But then when they're finished school, they're like, hey dad, well, like, let's go play now. And I'm always, it's this like tug and I don't know, pull where I'm like, and usually I try to, maybe I don't always do the best at it, but I try to like put my work to a side for a second, go play and be like, okay, I've got like, 20 minutes to an hour. Let's go play Legos or jump on the trampoline or do whatever it is. And then I got to go back to doing work. And they definitely don't quite get the work part of it too, because, I guess we live a unique lifestyle and we travel a fair amount and get to do some rad stuff, but I don't go to do a 9 to 5 like a normal, I don't know, person maybe, or like a lot of people in society. And so, when we do these travels, I try to explain like, well, daddy's got to go work and mommy too. Like Emily does a ton of work as well. But so that we can go do these trips. And they're just kind of like, well, why don't we just do the trips and you don't work? And I'm like, well, that's not exactly how it works. And so Tucker's at the age where I've been like trying to teach him about like, finance and how the world works and money and just, yeah, building wealth and all that stuff, which is pretty cool because he's kind of into it. Parker has no clue. She's just like, well, dad, let's go play Barbies. Come on. And so I also try to like keep myself in check too, that why I do all this stuff is to have that freedom with my family. So I try to remember that like, if that's the goal, then I should don't drop like the goal to chase the goal. Do you know what I mean? Like if I've already got a lot of what I'm looking for, then make sure that I'm actually spending time with my kids if that's the end goal in the first place. But yeah, I don't know. It's tricky. How do you juggle it all? How do you do like athletics, the different businesses, family?
I think you've from my eyes, you've crushed it in your balance with your family and how you balance your life, Nick. I mean, my kids. Every time I come up with a new idea, my kids are like, "Dad, you've got too many ideas already. Like, can you not just finish one before you start the other?" Especially like my two daughters. So yeah, there's definitely room for improvement in some areas. But it comes down to like, I'm just passionate about it. And that is like, I can decide if I wanted to go mountain biking today, I could go mountain biking today. But I am also very keen to like get this done and see it through. And it's like climbing a mountain. I'm just like racing to the top within each different business that I start. And just learning from them. It's kind of like my university. And then on the weekend, I spend a bunch of time, and I eat breakfast with my kids every morning and dinner with my kids every night. So I feel blessed for that. And we have a great life, but it's just trying to make sure that they're set up for life as well,
Yep. No, trust me. As a parent, I fully understand and respect that as well. And I almost feel like it's hard to understand unless you're a parent, or like you can understand it, but it hits different when you're an actual parent. Like there's no question that when I had our daughter Parker, our second kid, that it hit me like a bucket of cold water of like, now I really need to figure out financial literacy and all this stuff because I've got a family that I've got to feed and I've got to take care of and set up for life. And it like, I thought I had that already with Tucker, but then like after the second kid, it was like, okay, well, the family's just gotten bigger. This is now like more mouths to feed, which is one thing, but then it's like school and clothes and just future, like trying to set them up for success in their lives too. So I fully understand your kind of mentality there.
I find it so funny. Like, my eldest daughter's almost she's 9 this year, and and my youngest is 5, and I still feel like I'm like, man, were my parents, they seem so much more confident in this whole realm than I do. And I'm pretty sure everybody's always the same, you're just trying to figure it out as you go. So, and that's cool, man. It's good to, I enjoy like being slightly blind going into things.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's so much more fun to learn as you go, I find, than to know the answer before you take the step.
That's, I totally agree.
Like you're actually running like to me, I like to, and I think even with businesses, you try to drop in like you're running an unportageable, unscoutable gorge, right?
Yep.
And you just drop in. The thing that I always found when I was kayaking anything hard was you didn't have to worry once you went past the point of no return.
Yeah.
Like once you couldn't catch an eddy, okay, it's just send it, and and that's kind of how I think, and it's a bit of an adrenaline rush, right?
Yep. No, parenting is a lot like that, where I'm like, you're in this walled in gorge that you can't scout, you can't portage, and there's zero beta, except that that it's been run many times before and that it goes. And so like, I'm just like, well, I'm figuring it out as we go. Like, here we go. Yeah. Sam, you mentioned learning a whole bunch and how, that you're just like learning along the way. And then you also mentioned Richard Branson and Elon Musk. Have you like studied some of those guys in the past, and kind of like just learn from them, or do you just know of them from the fact that everybody knows of them and they're just like global names?
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely done a little bit of research on Elon Musk, Richard Branson. I love listening to the previous stories of how they've done things, but I actually find more relevance in the smaller operators, really, that are more hands-on on the ground at a scale that's more within my kind of parameters. I've really enjoyed listening, even within your podcast, there's a bunch of awesome nuggets that you can take away from your yarns with Rafa. I really enjoyed that, Tao. And then another podcast I love to listen to is called My First Million, and the title doesn't do us justice. It's really just spitballing ideas, and it just fires you up, and you hear these amazing stories of success and failure.
Yep.
And you just learn that everybody's in the same cycle, right? And it just comes down to, I guess, how different people execute and getting an overall understanding of where futures might be happening, and listening to people that are, I guess, smarter than myself, and it's easier to learn from them, and follow what they're kind of doing in certain areas, and take nuggets from them.
That's awesome. I'll have to check that podcast out as well. And I totally agree that it's just, we're all on a marathon, and we might be at different places in that marathon, but it doesn't mean we don't have to compare ourselves like to other people, because we might just be at different places in the same race. And at the same point, maybe we have different goals too, like where it's just like, different people want different things in life. So yeah, I think it's good to just like learn for yourself, kind of figure out what your goals are, and figure the best way to do it, and learn along the way. Cause it's, I don't know, for me anyway, it's been a huge proponent, is just kind of like jumping in, figuring it out, and learning from the mistakes and the success, for sure. I learn more from the mistakes than I do from any success every time.
Yeah, well, Yoda says failure is the best teacher, right? So
yeah,
I think
he was a pretty smart guy.
Yeah.
So Sam, you've done so much. I couldn't even list off all the different things that you've done: winning your world championship, starting your rafting company, your kayak company, this mobile app world championships, your EV car thing that I still don't fully understand what you're doing there. What's next for you? Like, do you have things that you're like, oh, this is my future goal? You said you had your 100-year goal. Tell us a little bit, maybe what's your next 5-year goal?
Yeah. So right now, just basically building. So we're building a new zipline venture, which will be amazing. You're going to be ziplining over waterfalls. It's going to be I think it's probably going to be the most silent zip line in the world.
Wow.
Just done heaps of different things within it, and within that project it's really opened up the sustainability that we're trying to focus on. So trying to reforest about 6 hectares in native vegetation and expand the footprint, the goal being to be able to cleanse the water of the river so that in 100 years time you'd be able to drink the river that you raft or kayak down.
That's cool.
And that's kind of the philosophy that we're trying to take to that approach, and making sustainable employment and opportunities within our areas. That's kind of what we're about within that kind of umbrella. And I guess the goal within that is really to set it up and elevate the business to be a lot more hands-off, and just be kind of a board of advisors and come into a weekly meeting on that regard. And then we're also dabbling in a little bit of e-commerce, just trying to figure that's something that kind of excites me actually. So we've just with Mike Dawson, actually we're just launching our first product, which is Bluetooth headphones called toamusic.co. We're just about to press go on that in the next couple of days. And then with App Champ, so that's kind of, when you prioritize something that has the most potential, it kind of comes down to, I think, they all have quite good potential within themselves, but ultimately, your bigger win would probably be from something within the mobile sector, just because it is just such a mess. Like when I compare myself to a competitor, say for the zip line, you might be talking like a 7-figure operator in value. Whereas if you compare yourself against a competitor in the mobile spacing, they're like a $9 billion operation, so that's kind of where it's quite an interesting big pie, and something it's just fun to go after it. And then, but ultimately, I guess it's just to set yourself up so I can enjoy life and go mountain biking and ride my motorbike and hang out with my kids, but still have some luxuries that I've always dreamed about having, from, I guess, as a little kid, I always wanted to have a plane with like a Superman S on the back was the dream when I was a little kid. And so
That's awesome.
Probably not to have the same scale plane that I wanted to have when I don't want a 747 anymore. I'm a bit more realistic. I'll take a Cessna. But just some certain things that would be like wins within my books, for what I'm after.
That's awesome, Sam. I can't wait for you to I'll just live side by side your autobiography, because I find it super interesting, everything that you're doing. And yeah, I wish you success with it all, because I don't know. I've read your name in many newspapers and articles and stuff like that. And I think I will continue to see that beyond just paddling and sports and stuff like that. So I know you've already done super successful with a lot of the businesses that you're doing. So keep it up. And I'm stoked to hear the day that like Google buys AppChamp or whatever your mobile gaming thing will turn into or whatever. So keep it up. I'm going to move us on to the next part of the show, Sam, that I call the fire round, and just kind of fire off a couple quick questions that I ask all of our guests. Do you have a favorite quote or a quote that you live by?
Yeah, I would actually say that it really comes down from Richard Branson's "Screw it, let's do it." Just like, let's just try it, like just give it a go.
I love that,
and that's kind of how I definitely operate.
Yeah. I could easily see that in just hanging out with you, that is how you operate. So I love that. Sam, do you have a favorite book or current book that you're reading?
Actually, I do. I love The Subtle Art of Not Giving It.
And F.
Yeah, and I love The 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss. That's awesome. Great reads. I actually don't read a lot of books. I use Blink list, and I listen
Yep.
to, the Blink lists. I love that. But at the moment, I see the most benefit for myself in just listening to a podcast, just because I can do it while I'm riding my bike, for a few hours.
If today was your last day on earth, Sam, and everything that you've done, so which is a lot, but all of the, accolades in paddling, all of your businesses, everything was to go away with you, and you were only left with a piece of paper and a pen, and you could write down 3 things to be true and 3 truths, and you could leave that for your friends, your family, for the next generations. What might those 3 truths be?
Oh, that's a very good question. That you do, I firmly believe that you only have one life, and so you should like grab it and just get as much out of that one life as possible. So to live your life to the fullest, and to live life like every day is your last, I think are amazing pieces of advice that everybody should adhere to.
Yeah.
And probably that, it's always darkest before dawn as well. So, I mean, I think all of us that have kayaked, you enjoy it. The perfect person, for example, of this is Eric Burney. He loves, and Stooksbury and those guys love suffering. And
Mhm.
that is because the reward after suffering is so much better. So, yeah.
Yeah, I
And
love that.
I think a lot of people, in this day and age, a lot of people find we're just not as mentally strong as we used to be, in
Mhm.
my opinion. And that's where you people that with social media, it's really easy to show rainbows and unicorns everywhere, but it is really important to know that everybody has struggles, and that you're going to be able to overcome them. You just got to persevere
Yep.
within it, stay strong.
No, I love all of that advice, and I totally agree. And I almost to the point that even if life isn't hard, because life is easy in a lot of aspects, just in the sense that, we can go to a grocery store and get food, and we can have taps that have water, and obviously depending on where you live in the world and stuff. But sometimes you just need to like force yourself into a situation where life is difficult, just so that you continue to grow, and you don't kind of get that complacency, because I think that is one of the things that happens when life becomes too easy too often. You get a little complacent in some things. So I love that, the idea that to push kind of that suffer upon yourself a little bit. And I also just like the quote, it's darkest before dawn, because that can be extrapolated into so many different things. You know what I mean? Beyond just, kayaking or sports or business or anything like that, that just anytime you're in a hard place and it feels super dark around you, know that it's darkest before the dawn. So yeah, great advice there, Sam. Something that I also try to do as much as I can for all of my guests that come onto the show is to try to give back. So is there anything that you're currently focusing on? I know you mentioned literally like a ton of things, but is there any like one thing that you're focusing on that I might be able to help you out with, or possibly even my listeners?
Yeah, your work-life balance, mate, is awesome. I really take my hat off to it, and the fact, I mean, I can't believe you've set up your own podcast. You've done your coffee, you've got your family TV show, and that you continue to travel around. You've got your kids growing up, so just keep. The biggest thing that you can keep doing is showing the light of how life can be lived in such a different light, a different way, and I really take my head off to that, and to you and Emily, and how you're raising your kids. I am definitely have moments of jealousy of seeing you guys cruising around and living the dream over there. um, and so just keep doing that, so we can keep reminding ourselves of what is important, so good
Yeah.
job there.
Well, thank you for that. I definitely feel super blessed with a lot of opportunities that I have, and like what you said, there's been a lot of hard work to get there, but yeah, I'm loving life as much as I can every day, and I can't wait to take the whole family to New Zealand, because that's been on my hit list for some time, and I still have never been there, so I'm gonna have
Without
to
that
come.
for
Yeah, I know. I gotta come over and visit,
Cool.
and maybe once that zip lines come up, I'll come. I'll be one of the first people maybe that can come do that. We'll see if they'll let me into the country or not.
Yeah, hopefully the anchors stick. Yeah.
Sam, for all of those out there that would love to continue to follow along your journey and your many different businesses and entrepreneurial feats that you're taking on, what might be the best way for people to reach out or follow along?
Probably to come over to New Zealand and hang out with me. I'm not the best at posting on social media, to be honest. I do it every now and again just to show people that I'm still alive. But pretty sporadically. But yeah, definitely reach out to me on Facebook, Messenger, or on Instagram, and I'm definitely trying to get a little bit better at my social media. So reach out, and it'll force me to respond.
Well, what's also where can people check out your mobile app? What should they be looking for if they're on like Android or Apple or anything like that?
Yeah, so you actually have to go on to appchamp.co.nz just because of the parameters of operating a prize competition on those platforms. So
Okay.
in our current stage that we're at. But yeah, check out appchamp.co.nz, or you can find appchamp on Instagram or Facebook and follow the links from there. And then within because the game's basically only live for 7 days, so we try to hide the game from people so they're all dotted around within the App Store and Google Play, and we only connect that into our platform with the API that connects the leaderboard through for the period where the game's live.
That's awesome. Well, go check out AppChamp, everybody. .co.com.nz.
Yeah, we're too tight to buy the .com for the moment being.
Sam, I love it. Final question for you. What is your definition of awesome?
Definition of awesome is always when you have that tingling moment within your body that comes from your gut, that you are just living this unbelievable life in a moment that you can't describe in words. And that to me is when you are awesome and living an awesome life.
I love that. Sam, thank you so very much for your time. This has been honestly one of my most favorite interviews. We definitely have to catch up again in person, and truly I wish you all the best with all the different things that you've got going on, because you've definitely got a lot going on, and I'm stoked for you. For all of our listeners out there that have tuned in, I hope you guys got some value out of this, because Sam just dropped a ton of knowledge and a whole bunch of nuggets of gold, as I like to say in there. Check him out. Check out his app, Champ. If you guys go to New Zealand, you definitely have to go check out Rotorua Rafting. And yeah, Sam's got so much going on. So if you did get value out of this, please, if you could share it out with one person, share it out with a friend, a family member, help us just kind of build our collective and community as a whole. And yeah, that's kind of my ask for you guys for today. Again, thank you so much for your time, Sam. I'm Nick Troutman, signing off, wishing you all an awesome day. Cheers.